Quentin Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And Dean, what are we doing here today?
Well, I mean, we're here to talk to a person that really needs no introduction. He's been on Cypher Unlimited more than once. One of our good friends from over at Monte Cooke Games, and also a great designer. The head designer, it seems, on quite a few things that we love, like Stay Alive and things of that nature. But, that big Kickstarter that's going on right now, we got Claim the Sky. And we have none other than the man, Sean K. Reynolds, who's going to be writing this and bringing us all the superhero goodness that we all love and cannot wait to sink our fingers and teeth and all of that stuff into. I mean, like I said, he needs no real introduction. But if you don't know who him is, who Sean K. Reynolds is, then shame on you, you know, because he's definitely one of the industry leaders as far as I'm concerned, as game designers and all of that kind of good stuff. And he's what, one fifth of Monte Cook Games head designers. So Anthony, let's get into it.
You stole my line, man. You stole my opening joke, dude. It's all good. Hey, Sean, it's your third time here. Like what Dean said, we could go over your extensive catalog in RPG industry, but we don't have 2 weeks. We only have about an hour, so we're gonna cut to the chase. Let's get right into it. Godforsaken, the PDFs, are now available to all the Kickstarter backers. So, and hopefully the physical copies are in the mail. I know mine is. I should be getting it in like 2 days. I can't wait. But can you tell us about the process of creating a fantasy toolkit for Cypher? And what do you think was the most challenging design aspect of this project?
That's two very big questions. I think the biggest problem is that, like doing a book on horror, fantasy is a very, very broad topic. There are so many kinds of fantasy, and you could write a book on each of them. We didn't have an infinite number of pages, so we had to say, all right, here's a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about, and we're going to go into it in this much depth and take it from there. That's why there's a lot in Godforsaken that is literally just, here's an additional list of inspirational sources that you should look into on this topic, whether that's check out these movies, check out these books in this fantasy genre, check out these artists who are influential of RPGs and fantasy in general. There's just so much going on in fantasy. And I think 95% of people who get involved in RPG gaming start by doing fantasy. So everybody knows it. You just got to figure out where your sweet spot is.
You guys changed your philosophy almost from the first Kickstarter. The concept of, I could be wrong, but it seemed like the original Cypher books were genre first, and now you moved into more of a toolkit for a specific genre with the setting as like an addition add-on. The original three seemed like the focal point was the setting, and now it seems like it's more of a toolkit, which I personally love.
I don't know if we actively changed our design philosophy. Our intent was always the book is going to be about 3/4 tools and about 1/4 setting. But perhaps our presentation outward to people reading the Kickstarter has changed over time. But definitely just because there's so many options for what sort of superhero game you can run and so many examples of different genres of superheroes that we wanted to be clear. It's like, hey, you can have Marvel Cinematic sort of superheroes. You can have more noir stuff like Jessica Jones. You could be more like street level. Oh, there's some sort of criminal conspiracy about super's existence. Well, we want people to be able to build the supers campaign that they want to run and play.
How much fun was it working on Godforsaken?
Oh,
it's funny because Monte and I co-wrote that book. And despite the fact that Monte and I have known each other for 25 years, there are very few books that we literally can say, you wrote part of this book and I wrote part of this book. So Godforsaken is one of them. But I think Explorer's Keys, where it was really, he's doing one small part and I'm doing another small part that don't really interconnect. Godforsaken and Ghostwalk are like the two main ones. So it was nice to kind of be partnered up with Monte and be literally like, I'm going to write this section. Hey, I want your advice on this thing that I'm writing out back and forth. That was really, really fun. And I haven't done that with Monte in 20 years.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And speaking of Godforsaken, a lot of people are super excited about that book. Myself are, I guess, all of us included. But that leads us to our next question here, and that is, can you tell our viewers a little bit more about the setting within Godforsaken, and how compatible will it be with the upcoming Ptolus books?
That's a really good question. So the setting stuff was written entirely by Monte, but he's talked about this concept of it for a long time, so we were all on board for what he wanted to do. I don't want to give away any spoilers as to what really is going on, but the idea is that the Godforsaken lands, the setting is, it's a world where the gods have won. Like there's no evil, everybody's safe, everything's fine, but heroes are going through these gates into other worlds where the gods' power can't reach, and so yes, there's still of a need for heroes there, and so it's kind of almost a plane hopping sort of thing, but not in a planescape sort of way where you're literally just jumping through these portals and going to different fantasy worlds that have different weird parameters and paradigms to them. And there's a little secret hint that we tell the GM early on as to what's going on there, but it's just more Monte weirdness of, oh, here's this world where everything seems to be cursed and like it literally hurts to walk around here. But you can come do some adventures there and then go back to your home world and be like, okay, we're going to recover a bit and then go on to the next crazy world.
Oh,
Nice.
that sounds extremely
sounds
interesting.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to read more about that.
So, we talked Godforsaken, but, Ptolus, first of all, how's the project going? Before.
All of the files are have been sent over to the editor, and most of them have come back from him and are in layout. So Bear is starting to work on the layout. You had asked about how Godforsaken and Talis relate to each other. We didn't want someone to, you can hear my cat howling, by the way, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We didn't want to expect that people would have both. We didn't want to require that people would have both. So in a lot of cases, we will have like the framework of something in the Talis book because it's necessary, because Talis is based largely on 3rd edition D&D where characters could get the ability to craft magic items. So we need a very simple magic item crafting system in Talis. But if you get Godforsaken, there's a more expanded version of that. And like there's some additional gear in Talis, there's more gear in Godforsaken. There are cases where there's a 6-page random encounter chart in Talis that says, hey, in any district, you can just roll a bunch of percentile dice. My cat is being really embarrassing. And you might end up with some crazy ass thing like, oh, you run into a manticore. Well, we don't have stats for manticores in the Cypher System rulebook, so we might have a 1-line call out that says, manticore, level 5, flies a long distance, each route. But we have full stats for a manticore, 1-page write-up of a manticore in Godforsaken. So if you have those both, you can be like, oh, I know additional stuff that a manticore might do. I've got the GM intrusions for a manticore. I've got what sort of treasure they might have. So the two things have been planned to work together very closely. And so that's why I was working on Godforsaken and Bruce and I were working heavily on Talis together.
So from that, leading right into the next half of the question is, with the design team being what it is for Talis and everything, how did you guys decide to break up the workload?
So Bruce and I have been tag teaming various projects, sometimes solo, sometimes together, but we've been working on Arcana of the Ancients together, which is a 5e project, and Beast of Flesh and Steel, which is a 5e project. And it came to Talis, and I felt that Bruce had been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for 5e stuff, and so I said, I will take on the 5e conversion of Talis, and you can work on the Cypher System version of Talis. So most of the Cypher System conversion is by Bruce. There were a couple of things where I think the Adventures chapter, like we have an MCG summit once or twice a year where we meet in person, although we did it virtually this year. And we run games for each other and talk about future projects. And so one of the things that I did is I did a Talis one-shot for Cypher System. And I'd already did some of the legwork for converting some of the adventures in the Talis book to Cypher System. So I said, Bruce, you know what? Since I've done half of this already, how about I just finish up all the Cypher System conversion for the adventures chapter? So it's almost all Cypher Bruce, almost all Sean doing 5e, and me doing a little bit of Cypher System for adventures.
I mean, that's actually perfect because it kind of leads into my question is, how was the Cypher, with Cypher guys? Even though we love 5e, I'm not going to lie, I'm probably going to play Ptolus in Cypher because that's my go-to system. So how is the Cypher conversion going, and what were the biggest challenges, converting a D&D 3rd edition? Well, it's not even a 5e edition, it's a 3rd edition, setting to Cypher.
I think the conversion turned out really fun. And actually, the home game that I'm running right now for my girlfriend, her son, and a couple of friends of mine from the Wizards of the Coast days in the 3E edition days was originally a Numenera game. And they had the itch to play. I'm like, all right, I'll run some Numenera. I ran through Ashes of the Sea and a couple of things that I wrote. And then it got to the point where I was going to have to start working on Talis. And I said, all right, how about we just take our Numenera characters and we'll bring them to Talis. And you guys can decide whether that is, we're actually from the 9th world and we go through a gate and suddenly we're in the world of Talis and people are talking about magic instead of Numenera. Or you can just say, we've built the exact same characters using the Cypher System rules for fantasy, and we're just going to assume that we've been fantasy characters the entire time. And they decided to go fantasy characters the entire time. So we have a fire priest, and we've got a Jack who's now an explorer, and my girlfriend's character is a martial artist, and her son's character is this guy who's kind of dabbling in chaositech and other, technologically sort of stuff. And we're having a really good time. We just went through a couple of the adventures, and they are nutty, goofy people. So I think the conversion is going really, really well. It's fun. Some of the biggest challenges are things that exist in 3E that don't exist at all in the Cypher System, like prestige classes. There's a lot of stuff in Talis that was built around concepts in 3E that aren't in 5E or Cypher System. And actually, some of these things like prestige classes were added to 3E because Monte came up with it for his Talis home game. So you've got these different knightly orders, and it's like, well, this was a prestige class that you had to be 5th level before you could take it. Now, what do you do with that? It turns out, well, here's just some special abilities that you could pick up if you're any character who joins this. I think there's at least one focus in there that's literally like, no, this is a focus for joining this group. And some of the things are like, this is just a weird monster ability. We're going to add that as an option to a bunch of different monsters. And there are custom Talis monsters that require a lot of conversion. A lot of them are really high-level weird things that rely on kooky-ass magic that isn't really a thing in Cypher System. Like D&D has different magic types like necrotic and radiant and things like that. And Cypher System is just kind of like energy is. You could have a Cypher System game where the only energy types are fire, thorn, and life. And so we had to decide which of those we wanted to use in this system. So there's a lot of challenges, but it's a lot of fun. There's some really, really amazing stuff that, and as a person who played Talis back in the day, it's nice to see our stuff that our characters did. Hi, cat cameo here. In the book, and how we converted them into Cypher System, and how running these adventures that I played through as a player 20 years ago, now I get to go and run this as a GM for my friends.
Nice.
Yeah,
I could. Oh, I was gonna say, I'll get screamed at because of, this gets mentioned a lot on the server, so I want to bring them up before I forget. One thing I know, Godforsaken actually touched on the subject, allowing race as an additional part to the sentence, in addition to, so you're basically having like 2 descriptors. So I'm assuming that, because that does give you the classic fantasy feel, having that separation of what your heritage or your race, what inherently gives you for being part of a specific race, and still having it not take away from the sentence. And I really love, I must admit, I read all of Godforsaken already, and I'm absolutely in love with that book. So I love that concept, and I'm definitely, when me and Dean, we ran some of the early editions of first edition D&D, and that was the concept we took. You know, we wrote out every race as a specific and just added it on to the sentence. So I love the fact that your guys did that with Godforsaken. And the second part is that Eric Frankhouse will literally kill me if I don't mention this. He wants to know is, how did you tackle Vancian magic, which was very prevalent in Ptolus and, you know, D&D style, you know, of D&D style fantasy games?
So I think it's in Godforsaken. We talk about different kinds of spellcasters. It says, hey, if you're from a background like D&D, where you're used to playing clerics and paladins and sorcerers and wizards, these words have meaning. And a lot of talk from those games is whether you're a spontaneous caster like a sorcerer or a prepared caster like a wizard. And we point out that in the Cypher system, most characters are basically spontaneous casters. They just have this set of abilities and they spend their points as they want on them. But we do introduce one variant that I think it's a focus, where you can just learn a whole bunch of other abilities and you select each day which ones you want to do. And I think we kind of use ciphers as a trick for that. Like basically, like one of your powers is, I'm just going to select what my ciphers are for today. And then you cast them like ciphers. And then one of your abilities is, all right, I'm going to rest. And instead of preparing spells for a spell book, you are preparing a new set of ciphers, which are your spells. So you can run a Vancian sort of caster in the cipher system without having to go and add a whole bunch of extra baggage on top of, well, I only know these 4 and I have to level up. And so we wanted still to keep that cipher system flexibility, but allow people to have the different sort of wizardly feel.
Nice.
Yeah, that definitely sounds so awesome. And I know a lot of people were looking forward, to the magic aspect of that book. And just to double back on what I was gonna say before that, before Anthony interjected,
I'm sorry.
No. I just want to, because I actually remember for a change, and I actually want to say it because I usually don't remember these things. Is that it sounds so awesome that all the stuff that you're converting over from the D&D aspect into the cipher system, just all the stuff you mentioned, sounds like there's gonna be a lot of fun stuff to play with when it comes to higher level stuff. If I interpreted that correctly. And I'm sure a lot of people will really appreciate that when it comes to running a campaign in a fantasy setting, which a lot of people look for that high level, like I can do crazier things, But either way, we can move it on to the next question here. Now that you guys have done, Gods of the Fall, Godforsaken, and Talis, you guys, do you feel like you've completely covered the fantasy genre? Do you feel like there might be any more fantasy books coming out in the future?
That's a really loaded question and a half. I think we've done a really good coverage of 2 different ways of handling high magic sort of settings, because Gods of the Fall was like you are literally becoming demigods and you're getting power shifts and things like that. And Talis is supposed to be the D&D like experience of going from level 1 to level 20, and that's where you are like the pinnacle of everything. And that's the high level sort of D&D-ish experience. But Cypher System characters have a different sort of feel. Like a first tier Cypher System character is much more competent and much more resilient than say a first level D&D character. So already the power scale is kind of in the middle, and it feels a bit more like a superhero sort of range on that. I think we could easily do a whole lot more with Cypher System Fantasy. I just don't know if people are ready to see that right now.
I could definitely see some dark fantasy. So or you could also go the Conan route, low magic,
Sword and sorcery.
Yeah, sword and sorcery. But either way, keep them coming. Like if you have me, I'll be asking for the moon. I shoot for the moon. I ask for it.
So, with that being said, we're gonna jump ship over here. Now, mind you, Sean, you did write Stay Alive, and Stay Alive by far was my favorite book to come out of your best game ever. But Claim the Sky, we're about to jump into the meat of things. This is where I'm at. Okay,
D was chomping at the bits.
I'm chomping at the bit. I want that book like yesterday, because anybody who knows me knows how much I love these superheroes. So that being said, you guys are giving us Boundless with Claim the Sky. Now you're including Origin as a stretch goal, and can you tell us about the differences between those two, with Boundless and Claim the Sky? I mean, of course, with the preview you gave us, Boundless is awesome as well. So
Sure. Yeah, the short version is that the Boundless setting in Claim the Sky is basically it's your established superheroes have been around for a while. They've been around since at least World War II. There's an update on the the Heroes of the Cypher System Kickstarter from Monte talking about all that. And so it's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that everybody knows superheroes exist. You probably have your favorite superhero. You could probably have an action figure of your favorite superhero. That's how prevalent they are, just like they are in the real world. It's similar to the real world, but with superheroes. Origins is different. It's much more low key, where like superheroes are a brand new thing, and most of them are kind of keeping it under wraps because they're not sure how unique they are, if this is like a sweeping sort of thing. There are government organizations that are trying to, contain or exploit them. Perhaps mysterious organizations not associated with the government. Bruce is working on an article giving similar levels of detail about the setting that Monte has provided for the Boundless one. So whether you want to run a high level cinematic, like, yes, we've got capes and we're flying around and punching space monsters and there are aliens and there are magic, or you want to have more of this is like a TV show level. We don't have a lot of special effects, but we definitely have superhero powers that we can use. There are going to be options for both types of GM and player. And at this time we're recording this, we're probably like $300 away in the Kickstarter from unlocking the Origin book. So hopefully
it's going to happen before the end of this. Before the end of this video.
Oh man, hopefully.
First of all, we're super excited. I know you've seen our last video on Supers, you know that we use Supers, man. So we've been geeking out about this the moment you guys announced it. But,
I took notes, just so you know.
Oh, right. We were like, we hope Sean is listening or something. I forget someone said something like.
I'm just gonna flat out ask you, like, are there gonna be any new mechanics? With, like, I know you have power shifts. There's so much room to play around in the the superhero genre is just so diverse. There's so many. Are you going to be adding any additional mechanics to like to hit the different types of super genres?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to your typical, there'll be more ciphers and artifacts and gizmos and new powers and new foci. Like, here's the thing. I'm really into superheroes. Like, I was a teenager in the mid and late 80s, and I got into comic books because of my friend Jason, and right when Rachel Summers first came back from the future, and you're like, who is this character? It turns out, she's the daughter of, Cyclops and Phoenix. And it was just 20 years preview that they had the Days of Future Past storyline. And Secret Wars happened and like all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that is the era of comics that I grew up in, where like all this crazy nutty stuff with time travel, interplanetary things was like at the forefront of the Marvel universe. I played the hell out of the TSR Marvel Superheroes Adventure game. And I want to basically go through the Marvel Ultimate Powers book for that thing and just say, can we do this ability in Cypher System? No. Okay, we need to make that power. Okay, next page. How about this one? Next page. Let's just go to the roster of the official handbook of the Marvel Universe comics saying, here's all these characters. Make sure that we can build those characters with the Cypher System. That is how in this I want to be. So yeah, we're just gonna have so many powers that you're just gonna throw up in excitement.
Yeah.
I have to.
Let me just get my joke off, and then you can interrupt. You ever watch the old Grinch when the heart was small and it grew bigger and bigger? That's what's happening to Dean right at this moment.
You don't understand. People out there don't understand, because I love Cypher System. I have written my own superpowers and things for Cypher System. This makes me so happy. So the only other thing I'm gonna throw out there, Sean, that you need to throw in there, we need a randomization chart. We need a chart where people don't know what their powers are, so you can spring it on them, so you can do those stories like Heroes and things like that. And so I'm throwing. We need that. So
That you mentioned that in the previous video, and I
he's
notes.
listening. This
I
guy.
copy pasted my notes into our MCG Slack. I'm like, here's what the Cypher Unlimited guys and the people watching this
Oh
session
my god.
said they'd really like to see.
Well, we all back at the playtest level, so
Amazing.
we're going to be excited to check it out.
Oh man.
There's a lot going on in there, and
I
I
don't know.
think like I ran a couple of weeks ago because we have a new employee. Latia is our new community manager, and she had never played Cypher System before. And I said, well, you know what? We've got a superhero Kickstarter coming up. Let's do a Supers one shot. And so I just made up pre-gen characters. Everybody was tier 1. Every single one of these characters was basically a teenage version who was like a fan of one of the existing Avengers. And so then we had a very young teenage Spider-Man, a teenage Iron Man, teenage, all this sort of stuff. And we had a blast because we were just fiddling around with power shifts. And Charles was playing Spider-Man. He's playing Spider-Teen, who was like 12, but pretending to be 13 years old. He's like, I'm not really good at punching. I'm like, check your power shifts. You have strength as a power shift, which means you add 3 damage to everything. He's like, my punches do 5 points of damage. I'm fine. I'm going to punch. So like, I want to do stuff like, hey, what if you are having heroes who are just starting out and they only have 1 power shift? You know, when do they get the opportunity to advance to the 2nd power shift, the 3rd power shift? We touch on that a bit in the vampire setting for Stay Alive, where you start with 1, you kind of dynamically select them, and then as a character advances, you can select more. But yeah, there's so much stuff that happens in the comics and in the comic movies that we want to be able to replicate in the Cypher system. There's going to be crazy stuff like, you've got power shifts and you have power ciphers that augment your superpowers in different ways. We want to have a mechanic where you can like, you know what, I'm the Human Torch and I need to go Nova Flame. I'm going to spend XP to add to my Nova Flame even more. We're just going all in on supers because like I love supers, Monte loves supers. So just here's a TSR anecdote. Back at TSR, the creative services department, which is the people who did all the designing and editing, was in a series of cubes on the 1st and 2nd floor of part of TSR. Monte shared an double cube with our friend Ray Valise, who is a frequent editor for MCG. They had a section of their shared double cube that was just full of action figures. And every week they used to, on Friday, they would set up these things in a story, and they called it issues. And so they would let people know, all right, there's a new issue out. And so people would come up to the desk and they would narrate what this issue was. But they had just gone off on the deep end, some of these things. Like they had like 8 different Spider-Man figures, but they're all different. So they had like battle damage Spidey and they called him homeless Spidey. And then they had Spider-Man who was a ghost because he'd been killed by Captain America. Captain America was like a murderer in this sort of scenario all the time. The Thing was always like being pushed around on a levitating hover cart because Captain America broke the Thing's back. And so just weird ass stuff like this. And they would do this every single week. And sometimes people would go to their desk who didn't really know what was going on, and they would rearrange the action figures and have them do like supervillain versus superhero battles. And then Ray and Monte would always put it back, and they would always like talk as the characters like, "What the hell was that? Why are we fighting each other?" I don't know. But that's how into comics Monte is, and that is how much into comics that I am, and that I actually did a guest spot doing an issue for Monte. So we love this genre. Like when I was growing up, I read the New Mutants and X-Men graphic annuals where they went to Asgard. I had God Loves, Man Kills, which is what the basis of X-Men 2, X-Men United, the movie, is about. Like, that is the era we're talking about, and it's just in my blood as much as horror and fantasy is. So I'm just that excited.
Yes, you know your shit, and I love it. And Cypher System is tailor-made for supers, really. You know, we've been running supers since the original Cypher book came out. And granted, it was a little more tweaking on our end, you know, to come up with powers. But the system itself handles it so well, you know. So I'm super excited to see what your guys are going to add to it. And like what we said, we wanted powers. That's what I wanted. I wanted powers, abilities, you know, to make it easier for people to craft characters and to come up with concepts they like. So oh my God, I'm so excited for this.
Like I said, I just got finished with a game. I don't even know if any of the guys are on the chat, but I just did a game where I randomized some of the powers, and people did not know their foci until we built them in the game. It was like I think we ran like an 8-part series. It played beautifully. So if you guys are giving us, actual rules for it, rules is written, it's going to make that portion of the job so much easier. And just the fact of the matter that, you're giving us first responders, that's another huge, huge boon because, being able to make the normal everyday guy, the doctor, the EMT, whatever, I think those things are going to just flesh out the cipher system in a whole nother round. And I just saw the Kickstarter just jumped up to 119,807. So we're under
Oof.
under $1,000 to get
Nice.
there.
But
200 and
sorry.
$273.
But yeah, now that you mentioned first responders, it's mentioned as the second main book from the Kickstarter. Can you explain to our viewers? I know Dean touched on it a little bit. What exactly the book is about, and is it a standalone product or is it meant to be a supplement for Claim the Sky?
You're muted,
Muted.
Sean. You're muted, Sean.
Oh, I thought I was muted. I was like, what?
Weird. My press to unmute button stopped working.
GM intrusion.
Yes. It is definitely a standalone product, but you can use it with any other Cypher system book because that's how we do it. But so, first responders is you are regular heroes of the front line, just like on Earth, dealing with emergencies. You might be a person who is a doctor working on a virus against a pandemic, or a firefighter, or an EMT, or some sort of alpine rescue worker. And the idea is that it's a book that presents all of these scenarios in exciting ways, which you could use as part of an ongoing Cypher System game, or you could also do it as we are going to have, everybody's going to have a stable of characters to draw from. And so this scenario might be, there is a fire in a building and we need 3 of this type of character and 1 of this type of character. But the next scenario might be, there's a flood or there's a hurricane. Well, this time I'm not going to play a firefighter. I'm going to play a member of the Coast Guard. And so you've kind of got like all these options for your characters going on. But I believe the intent is that you will still kind of level up all your characters in the same way. So it's more like your team of people is providing an expert for this scenario as your character to play. And as you, the player, go through more of these, your team is improving its skills. And the focus is on really what the disaster is, not so much the cause of the disaster. So you could have a situation where there is a burning building and you need to rescue people, and that is the problem. Whether that building is burning because there's a terrorist who's set off a bomb, or there's a gas main that is blown, or some sort of alien creature has crashed and set the thing on fire, doesn't really matter. I mean, that can flavor certain aspects of the scenario, but the scenario really is, I'm a firefighter, I'm a paramedic. There are people we need to rescue. There are parts of the structure that we need to stabilize. We need to get to those people. There are other people who are capable of dealing with the terrorists or the aliens or whatever. My focus is danger to regular people. I'm here to help.
Is it more of a standalone book, or is it?
He just said that.
You just said that, Anthony.
I'm sorry.
Hey,
I was reading the
blank
chat.
out.
Yeah, because it kind of reminds me of D20 Modern.
Well, what I was gonna say is that this is perfect because now I can run my Alien Invasion game that I want to run. So it's gonna be an Alien Invasion and all the first responders. It'd be great. It's gonna be awesome. See? Yeah.
Super exciting.
And I'm assuming it's gonna have a lot more equipment in it if it's dealing with a lot of jobs, right? Like, so you have like all the stuff that firemen would carry, police officers, EMTs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have an outline for it yet, but Monte's working on that, and because Shauna has a background as a firefighter, she's going to be heavily involved in designing this book and coming up with you're going to need your protective gear, you're going to need to have this sort of thing. And so equipment list is going to be a big deal for this book.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
Cause I know something that it's brought up a pretty decent amount is having a pretty detailed equipment list for certain settings or whatever have you. The Rise gives you, some stuff, but not like a huge detailed list. And for something like first responders, you definitely want to have a very detailed list of gear and equipment, because it's a vital part of those professions usually.
Oh, and just to throw this out there too, the Godforsaken equipment list rocks too. They really killed it in Godforsaken. I was
Yeah, they
pleasantly
did.
surprised.
Yeah, I mean, after reading through Godforsaken a couple of times, I've been inspired for some other stuff because like when Diamond Throne comes, it's going to be some good connections. It's going to be fantasy is getting real. You guys have really done fantasy up with everything, but back to the goodies. Now we've already know you announced some school stretch goals with the bestery at 250K. We know about the double-sided map. You know, of course, Origins probably should be funded by now. Can you give us an idea or any other things that might fall into the into stretch goals?
I mean, one of the easy ones is we add more pages to something. And this is kind of a weird Kickstarter for us because we tend to categorize Kickstarters as an A Kickstarter and a B Kickstarter. Like Talis would be A, Invisible Sun would be A. Your Best Game Ever that had the 4 original genre books in it is definitely an A. And then we have like minor ones where we're like, we don't expect this to go to $500,000. And we don't expect this to have 1,500 stretch goals. So Claim the Sky and Here's the Cypher System, like we're originally looking at this as we've got 3 books. We've got Claim the Sky, we've got Origins, and we've got First Responders. And we've got this other one of the Bestiary up there as well, and a few things in the middle, but we're not expecting this to blow up. I mean, like it's doing really well. It started off much better than we actually thought it was going to be, even at this point. So it's hard to say, and I think they would smack me if I gave you any additional previews of things. But we always have the option of adding more pages. If this Kickstarter goes haywire, then we'll add pages of something. We've already got the dice plan as an add-on. There's other cool stuff. I mean, we're all excited about it. Honestly, I haven't looked at a detailed page-by-page breakdown of Claim the Sky. I mean, Monte has written the detailed outline. I don't know if he's assigned pages to it, but sometimes I kind of wonder if there are enough pages in that book to cover all the stuff that we want to do. And so adding more pages to it would be a very easy, all right, we'll add another 32 pages.
We're not going to fight you for this if you add additional pages. I'll tell you that much.
And no promises, but you never know.
And if you need an idea, a couple ideas, listen, a nice villain deck, a villain randomizing deck would be awesome. Just 100, just throw it out there, because we like decks too.
Also, the Bestiary, we need that book.
We want that book in work.
Yeah, we need that book. Is going to happen if I have to go to everybody's house and physically force them to back the Kickstarter. Is going to happen.
And I was going to say that just based on what Sean was saying, like the little slab of it says more. There's so much we can add. That means we have to make sure the Kickstarter goes haywire, so that they have to include all this extra goodies. And that's a challenge from me to everybody watching. Let's make this Kickstarter go haywire.
I mean, I have no doubt. We did a video a year ago on like the evolution of MCG's Kickstarters, and you could see the growth of how your guys, not only presented it differently to attract a bigger audience. Your growth it seemed like every Kickstarter got better and better. You got better with your stretch goals. You got better at the way you relayed your messaging. So I have absolutely no doubt that last week your guys shoot up like a rocket on every Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, especially this time of year and this year in the middle of a pandemic and right approaching the holiday season. We're like, is this going to take off well or super well? We don't know, but we are very pleased with how it's going so far.
And if you need honestly, if you need a poster child for it, I'll talk about it daily for you.
I do think that some of it is that the Cypher System audience has grown. And so there are more people who are like, oh, there's a new Cypher System book coming out. I want to try that. I think we do have several key things that help with this Kickstarter in that, for example, we have cipher shorts in every single one of the genre books so far, and the example cipher shorts rules, the included sample cipher short is there's a fire in a burning building and you're trying to rescue people.
Yes.
So we're already like we're listening here. Yeah.
Not only that, like I tell everybody on the server, the value you get for your money from backing the Kickstarter instead of waiting for it to come out is ridiculous. You like I said, we did a video. When we went through all your Kickstarters, everyone had over $100 extra value. So even if you back at just everything in print, right? With those 4 books, you still up $70, not counting any of the other additional. So you get a bang for your buck. It's well worth the money to back the Kickstarter as opposed to waiting for them, to come out on general release.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then like it's what you call, and it's Monte Cook Games, right? Like I feel like people might have be like, oh, I'm on the fence. I want to see it before I buy it. But like y'all have such a good track record at producing such great books at this point. Like I can't imagine people waiting to say, hey, it's just, it makes more sense to get it up front. Like you're gonna like it. If you're a Monte Cook Games fan, you're gonna hear people talking about how good it is, and you're gonna buy it eventually anyway. So like, might as well just get it right now while it's a little bit more bang for your buck, right?
And especially there are some cases where we print most of our books in China and Canada, and there's a possibility that some fluctuation in the market might mean that cost of paper or printing goes up. And so if you get it at the Kickstarter price, then it's that price. If you wait, the book might go up by $5 or $10 due to something that we have no control over. Again, 2020 is not over. Who knows what 2020 is going to keep doing for the next 45 days.
Oh, trust me, I understand. I mean, and Sean, I mean, as a whole, just looking at everything from beginning to end, we just want to say thanks, from Cypher Unlimited. Monte Cook Games has been great to us, and you guys keep putting out great content. I mean, the books that came with Your Best Game Ever have been great. Stay Alive, like I said, was top of the tier. I read that book the first night twice in a row. The first night I had it, the PDF, I read it twice in a row. And I was on the edge of my seat waiting for Godforsaken. And then I got my hands on that, and I've been able to read through that. And it's like, once again, just kid in the candy store. But, now, I mean, the world is like complete. I can, I'll be happy in, 6 to 8 months.
But,
So,
yeah,
Anthony, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say this has been an excellent talk. But we are gonna open it up to questions from the audience. We already have a couple from Joanne. Wait, it's Joanne, right? Like I always forget if it's I'm so
Joanne.
bad. I'm so bad. Anyways, are you planning on expanding or writing more for Masters of the Night?
I don't have anything specifically on my schedule, just because we have various Kickstarter projects that still need to be fulfilled. Like I am working on Vertices, and then when I'm done with Vertices, I'm probably going to start working on either converting one of the Talis adventures that exists already or writing a new one. And then I'll probably start working on Flame the Sky. It's one of those things where if there's a lot of interest, then MCG would go, oh, that's cool. We maybe should do more about that. But it's also a possible case where, like with other stuff that we've released to the Cypher System Creator Program, other people who might be able to write for that, or I might say, hey, Monte, I would like to write a supplement for Masters of the Night. How do you feel about that? And he might say, oh, don't do that, or please feel free. Like he has given us verbal permission on other things like that, which I won't say out loud because I don't want to spoil what any other designer at MCG is working on. But I mean, Monte and I worked together on the D20 conversion of the World of Darkness. And so I've already written about vampires and werewolves and mages and all that sort of stuff. I could easily see adding another little source book for, hey, if you want to add werewolves to Masters of the Night, you could. Like when I ran Masters of the Night as a playtest at one of the MCG summits, and the characters got the little note that says, hey, I turned you into vampires. Hang around, I'll come back for you. The players are like, do we know that vampires are real? No. Do we know that werewolves are real. No. Those are the first two questions. So, are there werewolves in the vampire setting? Is an obvious place to expand that world.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. And just another, we're off the top of the head, top of the dome. Another nice stretch goal you guys could do is if you did like a, like the mini adventure books, the 10 instant adventures for Cypher System, or even for Claim the Sky would be good too. And just throwing it out there, just stuff.
I have a. I'm sorry. I have a question from Eric Frankhouse. He wants to know: are you going past power level 10?
Yes.
Super.
As I said, I watched your entire show about Claim the Sky and superheroes, and I took a lot of notes. And I know that one of the things you mentioned was dealing with stuff above level 10 and potentially above level 15 of the rule book. Like, we want to talk about stuff that could be cosmic level adventures, because in the setting there are aliens and there is magic, and so you could have a situation where an alien kaiju monster comes down to Earth and you have to go punch it in the face, and that's a difficulty 15 sort of thing to do. We're listening.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, I feel special.
Here's the thing. You guys are we really appreciate your attention to what we're doing and your love of the product and how critical you are of us. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, it's good to be critical. It's good to say, hey, we like this. Hey, this could be better. Like, I watched your show where you rated all of those products, and I'm like, yeah, I agree with this. Agree with that. Oh, I can see that. Like, we know you guys are paying attention. We know you love the setting. We know that you love the work that we do. And one of the reasons why we are doing this is because we love designing games, but we love to hear that people are loving what we're doing, and we don't want to disappoint you. We want to keep doing what hopefully you keeps considering the awesome work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Oh, you stuck with us, Sean. We ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, you get.
I printed up all these T-shirts and hats. What are we gonna do with them?
All right, so Josh has a pretty good question. He asks, do you guys, when you add more pages, quote unquote, as a Kickstarter goal, do you already have that stuff written out, or do once the goal is reached, do you look at each other like, okay, so now what do we add? Like, is it just adding on top, or I should have just read it verbatim? But yeah, something like that.
We don't start.
Why don't you just read the question?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I choked. I choked. Okay, I choked.
Because what we're doing is we have one or two Kickstarters worth of material that we're still working on. We don't generally start actually writing a book for a Kickstarter until months after the Kickstarter is finished. The fact that Monte has put all this level of work into Claim the Sky is unusual. Like, he is working on that, and then he'll probably start writing a little bit of it next month. So when we say we're going to add more pages, it's literally like, we generally think, we kind of divide books into whether it's a small book, a medium, or a large book. Like a small book like Vertices, we're like, oh, that's a bunch of stuff. It's a bunch of location-based sites. That's 96 pages. We might have a larger book, like one of the adventure path sort of things, like Where the Machines Wait, or Priests of the Eons. It's something that's like 144 pages. And then there are the big books like 224s, like the genre books. And when we hit a stretch goal, we're like, all right, this was originally going to be a small book. We'll bump it up to a medium book. Or this was going to be a medium book. We'll bump it up to a big book. And then in some cases, we have to end up making it bigger anyway. Like the Cypher System rule book, we were writing that after the Kickstarter was done, and we realized this just needs to have 60 more pages to fit all this stuff. And so we just made it bigger. But yeah, it's not like, oh, Claim the Sky is 50% written. Oh, I guess we hit a stretch goal, we'll add another 60 pages of powers. No, it's not like that at all. It's just like, oh, okay, well, we'll make it bigger.
Cool.
And we'll figure out exactly how.
What's even more amazing is I don't think most people realize the size of your team. You know, when people join the server, they think that your guys have like 50 people working in a warehouse somewhere. And I'm like, no, there's 4 writers. They do everything, you know. Like the work your guys put out is incredible. And the quality that is even more astonishing. To have I can only imagine what your workload is. Having all these Kickstarter and now dealing in multiple systems, which will confuse the hell out of me. Like Monday, you're thinking of 5e, and then next week I gotta go back to Cypher. That has to be really confusing.
It really does affect us. Like a lot of times where Bruce will say blah blah blah, and I make the check, and he's like, "Wait, that's D&D," and I'm playing Invisible Sun. That's crazy. Like just a comparison. Like when I started working as a designer for Wizards of the Coast in '98, an in-house designer was expected to produce one module unit per month of writing. That's 32 pages. And the word per page was like 600, 800 pages. 600, 800 words per page. MCG books are a little lighter in terms of word count just because we have sidebar, we have call-outs and stuff like that. So it's more like 500. But generally, Bruce and I write 3 or 4 pages a day for MCG, which means we're actually writing at like twice the speed or more that we were doing when we were baby designers back in 1999.
And I also have to tell you too, you also do a lot of, little bit of that side mentoring stuff. I thank you so much, as you throw those things out there, because those are gems, and they've helped me immensely.
Well, I mean, I was training to be a teacher. I was a teacher for a little while before I took a strong left turn into game design for 25 years. So I want people to do better. And like, here's the thing, the more people that I encourage or inspire or just give a little tip to make their stuff better, that makes gaming better. That helps all of us. And someday I'm going to die. So someone's going to need to step up and be, the next who's carrying on that legacy.
You're gonna live forever, Sean.
Okay.
But even like they say, even though your physical form, you're leaving a great legacy.
Most definitely.
Great legacy of stuff.
If there isn't any more questions for the chat,
there are a couple more actually.
Yep.
So Eric asks just a real simple question: are there any new things for power shifts?
Yes. We have a couple of notes from the chat and a couple of notes of stuff that we're doing, but yes, there will be more things to do with power shifts, because it's one thing just to add a level of effort to whatever you're doing, or like the one that gives you an extra recovery roll, but we want to be able to do stuff like, as you mentioned in your chat, like, hey, I want my ability to lift something to be higher, or I want to be able to shrink myself or grow myself to be better. There are more things we can do with power shifts than just the fun.
Nice.
Yeah, we use power shifts for anything. That's like salt and pepper in our Cypher games.
I mean, when we run, like I said, Anthony's character in my game, the heater, he would smack these flaming baseballs at people, and so we used the power shift to give him the triple play. So when he hits the ball, it burst into 3 different ones and hit 3 different targets. Cool. Stuff like that, So.
Yeah, that was an awesome character. I miss playing the heater.
And we have another question from Joanne that's actually pretty nice question. Are the toolbox books like Stars of Fire, Stay Alive, We're All Mad Here, Godforsaken considered part of the fan use policy for us to write under the Cypher Creator Program?
Ooh, that I don't know. I will ask about that.
That's an excellent question.
I know it'll take me a while to get back about that, because the person who handles updates the creator program is Charles, and he's out on vacation this week, so I can't really bug him about that. But yeah, that's a good question. Very good question.
Yeah.
I want to just add one thing about the power shifts and stuff. In a Super's game, power shifts are basically another currency that your character has, because you've got your pool points, you've got XP, and you have power shifts. And if there are 3 different ways you can advance your character, giving you more options for what your power shifts can do, I think, is a really cool way to let you kind of spread out your character in different ways that aren't necessarily available for XP purchases or for points.
Nice.
And that's one of the unique things about Cypher system in general, the resource management. And if you view it as this is another currency I could use to either enhance the narrative or enhance my character. The more options you could give a player, the more agency. Players enjoy that. They enjoy being able to handle the narrative, control the narrative with using, resources. I have a cool question from Kesrek. He says, I know it's superheroes and they can do big things, but are you going to have new rules for attacking huge targets like kaiju with more than just an attack roll versus a health pool?
That's a good question, because Shauna is working on the Tidal Blades game, and Tidal Blades has gigantic kaiju-like creatures, and she has been coming up with ways of, you could have a creature that's literally as big as an island, and you can't just punch that island to death. Like, it's not realistic. So how do you have a human-sized character interacting with that creature in a certain sort of way? And so she's coming up with some neat mechanics for, here is how the creature is vulnerable to some sort of attack. Whether that's you have to hit it in this vulnerable spot, or you have to go inside its body in a particular area, or you have to use a particular thing. So yeah, we're already thinking about weird ways that characters can actually have a practical effect on something that is that big. Because really, unless you're Superman, you can't really punch a mountain with that. Or a mountain. But Batman would find a way to make it work.
Well, that's just like I said. You're talking my language. Because see, I'm already thinking about when the Fantastic Four had to go inside Galactus's world ship, things like that. These are all those little aspects of dealing with the Watchers. I'm so happy right now.
I mean, that Kickstarter had me at you could play turtle people.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I'm in.
But I think we have one more question from Eric. What was it? Damn, where did it go? It scrolled. There it is. What was your favorite conversion that from 3.5 that you turned into Cypher system, or converted to Cypher?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, so most of the conversion for Cypher was Bruce, but one of the things that I did. So here's the thing: D&D italicizes magic items and spells. So one of the craziest things that we've had to do for the book, because we're trying to make it so that Bear doesn't have to lay out two complete versions of the book. So a lot of these chapters are going to be identical, but the game stats are going to be in callouts. And so the 5th edition book is going to have a 5e callout. The Cypher System book in that same place is going to have a Cypher System callout. But if we say something like, so-and-so has a potion of healing, in the D&D 5e book, that would be italicized. And in the Cypher System book, it's not italicized, right? And in the Cypher System book, we don't even have potions of healing, because the Cypher System doesn't have anything that says this is what a potion of healing is. So one of the things we're having to do in the Talis book, it's something that I did, said, you know what? A lot of these ciphers have very techy sort of names that aren't appropriate for a fantasy setting. So here is alternate names, fantasy names, for all the ciphers in the Cypher System rulebook. And so we can say stuff like, here's a potion of healing. That's a level 3 rejuvenator cipher. Here's a potion of greater healing. That's a level 6 rejuvenator cipher. And here is an immovable rod. Well, that's whatever the cipher is, the one that fixes in place. And you can never,
Reality Spike, I think.
Reality Spike.
I can't believe I knew that.
So I came up with fantasy names for all those things. That if there is some offhand mention of a magic item that is clearly in Cypher System would be a cipher, it has a fantasy sort of name. So a D&D player knows, this is the potion of speed. Well, a Cypher System player would be like, what's a potion of speed? And they'll go look it up on the table and be like, that's the speed enhancer cipher. I know what that is. So that was me going, how do I make this D&D thing work in a Cypher System that doesn't require me to write a new definition of 300 items? So that made me fun.
That's awesome. That's actually super cool.
Is that it for the?
That's it.
I believe so.
So we get to move on to the fun part. You've done all our game. We're running out of games to design for you, Sean. This is the 3rd time. So we decided to go with a pop culture fantasy mix, rapid fire question. And I'm going to add an additional extra question because hearing Sean talk about, I'll add it at the end. But Al, go first with our first pop culture fantasy rapid fire question.
Gotcha. So, first one off the bat might be a toughie. Marvel or DC?
So growing up, I was a Marvel fanboy. I was a Marvel zombie. I still prefer the Marvel stuff. I haven't really liked the DC movies that they've done in the past 5 years, with the exception of Wonder Woman. That was fun. But I can quote back and forth all the Marvel movies and Jessica Jones and Daredevil and all that sort of stuff.
See,
Nice.
that's why I knew I liked this guy. Avengers of Justice League.
Again, Marvel for Marvel, so I have to say the Avengers.
Mine's is pretty simple. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invulnerability.
That's a good one.
I know a lot of people who say, "Oh, regeneration." I'm like, yeah, but if you're invulnerable, you don't even take damage in the first place. You'd never fear anything. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna walk through the baddest part of town. I'm gonna walk into this burning building. I'm gonna help you." It's like, you're fine.
Good answer. Good answer. Cape or no cape? That's a tough, actual toughie.
Cape is really good for showing this, but it does leave you a little vulnerable for people getting grabbed. And it's funny. So, like, a year ago or so, I posted on Facebook that I was explaining the intro to the Watchmen movie to my roommate Scotty, because she's older and she's not really into comics and stuff. But I showed her the intro to Watchmen, where that character Dollar Bill from the original group got his cape caught in the revolving door of the bank that he was protecting. So I had to explain, like, this is literally a 15-second part of the opening scene of Watchmen, and I explained the whole thing about the Minutemen and this and that and that. And when she finished, she's like, "That was a very long explanation for a 15-second thing. Have you met me? I over-explained everything." So I think in terms of practicality, I would say no to a cape, especially as once I was punched. Well, it's hard to say because I was punched in the neck in a Starbucks, but it was winter and I was wearing a scarf, and so it protected me. So maybe there are opportunities where a cape would be advantageous, but I don't know. Hard to say, man. I'm gonna waffle on that one.
Oh man! All right, so I think it's on D now.
Oh, it's my turn already?
Yeah.
All right. So, secret identity or have the whole world know who you are?
Wow. So I think I would have to have a secret identity because, like, as it is, my girlfriend is not on social media. I'm very protective of her, and so that people don't know who she is or where we are or what my address is. And I think as a superhero who literally has regular criminals and supervillains who want me dead, I would have to have a layer of protection. I might even have a fake real identity so that people who find that out, I'm still protected with one. That's kind of like two-step authentication for my actual self and my actual address. Like, part of me would want to say, yes, I'm Sean Reynolds, I am Iron Man. But I just know that someone would be like, oh, I'm going to shoot at your friend because you arrested my criminal brother.
How about Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. So Harry Potter came out when I was at TSR, and all of us TSR people went to see it. Actually, it came out when we were at Wizards of the Coast. So it was just a big thing of like, we are Wizards of the Coast. We're doing fantasy. We're going to go see Harry Potter. Saw Harry Potter. Wow, that was great. I read the whole series. Now it's fun. It starts out as a children's book and gets more dark and mature as you go along. Then Fellowship of the Ring came out, and we were just like, that's how you do it. I got to say more Lord of the Rings. Like, I can quote Harry Potter stuff, and I can point out differences between the movies and the books. I can also do that for Lord of the Rings. Like, one of the things that really impressed my girlfriend's son, who is, he's a weird mix of sports guy and gamer nerd. But I was telling him about the scene with Galadriel and the Fellowship and the gifts, and her giving 3 of her hairs to Galadriel. And I just went off on this 5-minute speech about Fëanor and the Silmarils and why she turned him down every time he asked for a percent of her hair. And then she said yes to Gimli and what that effect that had on Legolas. And he's like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, I'm a super geek with a crazy ass deep memory, and
We read this stuff. We read this stuff like some people read the Bible. I mean, it is what it is.
And fun fact, before we continue on to the next rapid fire question, just about me. I know I've mentioned this a lot, but since we're talking about it so much right now, I've never read or watched Lord of the Rings. Same thing for Harry Potter. I always like to throw that in there when people talk about it. I don't know. It's just people like to what roast me for it, but I always like to be transparent because I'm shrugging when you're mentioning all these things. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. Like like not a clue. But either way, next question is spellbook or broadsword.
Oh, wow. I love magic. I love the concept of magic and that it can do stuff that we can't do in the real world. And so for the longest time, my characters were always wizard, wizard, wizard. And then third edition came along, and I tried to play against type, and my character in Monte's Talis game was a swashbuckler sort of hero, and so I had fun being the huzzah, I've got a rapier, and I'm going to do super crits and things like that. But really, it comes down to magic. I love the magic. That's why I love Invisible Sun, and that everybody is some sort of weird spellcaster. Yeah, like, and to be fair, the game that Monte ran before Talis was called Primal. It was the second edition campaign. And I was playing a wizard character who was modeled after Indiana Jones. So he used a whip. He had a custom magic missile spell that had a 10-foot range, but it did more damage. And so he was a wizard who started with, I think, a 12 intelligence and a 15 dex, and he was very high charisma. So back then, when you could level up and you get a new ability score point, I was always having to put it into intelligence just so I could take the new higher level spells that were available to me. Like there was a time where like a level and a half, I'm like, I can't literally get a 4th level spell because I'm not smart enough. So I'm working that line in between the two of them.
Yeah, that's why I would always multi-class, So, well, once again, rogue or cleric?
Well, it's funny because my swashbuckler character in Talis, his name is Sherm, and he started out as a rogue, levels in fighter, and then when we were in a really bad spot, he was a worshiper of the goddess of laughter, and in a really bad spot, I picked up levels of cleric because we were all in prison. Our cleric was unconscious, and I took a level of cleric so that I could heal us the next day and we could bust ourselves out.
Nice.
So there's definitely benefits to both. As the person who's written about 7,000 God articles for Greyhawk and for God Realms and everything else, definitely I see the appeal of fate in the game. It would be hard for me to choose one, and I think the ability to be a cynical sort of rogue who can be like Conan and say like, "Hey, Karam, if you're listening, please help. If not, then to hell with you."
I like it.
I like that concept a lot.
All right, this is a 3-parter that tests your early 90s film knowledge.
Okay.
Princess Bride, Legend, or Dark Crystal?
Wow.
Ooh.
I think in terms of a fantasy story, I like the Dark Crystal best. I'd say Dark Crystal, Princess Bride, and Legend, just because I don't like a lot of the songs in Legend. It's kind of silly and goofy. But I do like some of the kind of the background lore of Legend. But Dark Crystal.
They also had the best looking goblin at the time.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that made Legend work was just that opening soliloquy by Tim Curry. Mother Night.
Oh my God!
Embrace me in your dark arms.
Hold on. I'm sorry, because you said Legend, and I'm just dyslexic enough to interpret that as Labyrinth.
Oh.
Let's revise my statement, because Tim Curry as the darkness in Legend is so freaking weird and awesome.
Exactly.
And like super deep voice, and like it's just all those weird characters. Like, oh man, Legend. It's hard to say. I think in terms of fantasy movies, that I'm going to have to say Dark Crystal, Legend, Princess Bride.
Ooh, yeah, because I mean, you got to. I mean, like I said, when that whole opening soliloquy was just magnificent. I love that. Embrace me in your dark arms.
I got 2 bonus questions. Sandman or Watchmen?
Neil Gaiman's Sandman? Or yeah. Wow, you're coming up with some really tough questions.
I didn't realize you were a comic geek like me and Dean are. So I had that originally. I was like, I don't know if he knows Neil Gaiman. Let me scratch that.
So I love the Sandman stories. Like I've read A Game of You, and the one where he gets the key to hell, and like the first 4 or 5 volumes, the one where Despair dies, and they've got all the different anecdotes about that, and there's so much weird world building lore in the story of Dream and the Endless, and how they all have all their crazy history, and how Delirium used to be delight, and how Destruction gave up because he's just like, humans are too good at this, I don't need to be here. And I love how Destruction decided to go off and become a painter, and he's not good at it because the opposite of destruction is creation. So it makes sense that the epitome of Destruction of the Endless is not good at creation. He's not good at it. So I think that's just fascinating and wonderful. Watchmen is just amazing for so many different reasons, because it was a genre breaker. It just turns the whole concept of superheroes on its head. The fact that it presents half of its stuff in letters to the editor and excerpts from a book, and that it's regular people and an actual superhero, and they're like, well, why are we even bothering, because this guy is literally a god. They are just so, I mean, I could go on about, I could do a whole show about either of those things.
And I had another bonus question, but I think I'm gonna ask the chat's question because it's actually really good. Who's your favorite villain of all time in comics?
Well, I was more of an X-Men fan than an Avengers or Fantastic Four fan. So I think for the most part,
Dr. Doom was pretty awesome.
Dr. Doom was pretty awesome. He's also this kind of megalomaniac sort of guy. Whereas if you look at Magneto, he is this tyrant. He is kind of this supremacist. He's also lived through the Holocaust. Like, he can justify everything that he's done because he has seen the worst of humanity. So there's an aspect of him like, you know what? I sympathize from where you're coming from, because you have seen genocide. You have seen it affect your family, you've seen it affect your friends, and you are like, never again are we going to have that happen. And so when the X-Men movie started with young Eric in the concentration camp manifesting his powers, and he wasn't able to control it enough to save anybody, like, he's carrying the guilt of that to the present day. So that just makes him not a tragic villain, like not an anti-hero certainly, but someone you can go, oh, he's not just a flat, I want to rule the world sort of character.
Yeah. Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, Magneto's a great character.
So I'm gonna go ahead and see if there's any final thoughts from anybody. Sean, you got any final thoughts for us? Because it's been a great talk, and I mean, we would probably could talk for another hour or two. You got any final thoughts for people out there in the interwebs and Cypher Unlimited?
Like, it's clear. I hope it's clear that I'm a fan of comics, and I'm super excited to be working on this stuff. And that Monte's a fan of comics, and super excited to be working on this stuff. And that we're going to pour all that love of superheroes into Claim the Sky, the same way that I put all my love of horror into Stay Alive. And we're going to work our asses off on it. If there's anything, the easiest thing that you can do about the current Kickstarter is to share it. And if you can share it with someone who's not into Cypher System or hasn't tried it, run a one-shot of Cypher System. We have some free one-shot adventures you can do on the website. Just show people, hey, this is a cool thing to take a look at. Heck, just back the Kickstarter for the dice. And they're like, you know what, I could.
Dice are awesome.
There you go. Spread the word, get that Kickstarter rolling. Obviously, we funded the first 2 books. The next book's going to fund by tomorrow, I'm sure. Just, we want to do more. We love this stuff. Thank you so much for giving us the chance to do this book.
Yeah, I mean, we're all very excited.
Anything from you, Al?
No, just that we're all so excited to see what's coming out. Everything you said today just further increased the excitement. Like, especially all the stuff about what is it, Claim the Sky, and how it's going to have, I forget verbatim what you said, but tons of powers. Like, it's all very, very exciting.
I do want to add one little thing, just because I often spoil something. Like, you didn't hear from me, but I'm pretty sure there's a deck lined up as a special.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Hush, hush.
I just want to say thank you, Sean, for coming on. You're always so gracious, and every time we ask you to come on, you always like, yeah, let's do it whenever you want, and we really appreciate all the support. Not only do you give Cypher Unlimited, but Monte Cooke as a whole, Monte Cooke Games as a whole gives all their fans. You know, your guys are so approachable. You're one of the few gaming companies that really listen to us. You know, listen to us as a fan collective, and you really want to produce products that not only you guys, know are good games, but that your fan base will enjoy, and we really appreciate that.
Most
And,
definitely.
basically, my final thought, real simple. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I thank you. So,
Before you sign us out, Al, if you like Cypher Unlimited, if you like what we do, please give us a follow on Twitch, or this will be up on YouTube tomorrow. Like, share, and subscribe the video there. We just hit 500 subs on YouTube, and we want to grow the channel even more. The more time, the more people that subscribe or share our videos, the more it'll get out to the algorithms of YouTube, and more people will see our stuff. We could get more cool guests like Sean on the chat. Next week I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure Latia confirmed for next week. So she'll be on, and it's really exciting. It's a whole new challenge for her dealing with us. Wait till she gets a load of us. So, that's gonna be really awesome. We finally get to sit down with Latia, and I spoke to her the other day, and I told her, we drove Darcy crazy, and we look forward to driving you crazy. So
right.
that should be exciting, and follow us, give us a little donation on Ko-fi. It helps us out with stuff like Zoom course, or visit our merch shop and get the cool Cypher Unlimited swag. We got t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. Like we said, our videos will always be free, but whatever you can to help us out would be greatly appreciated. And like always, we love you guys.
Thanks again so much for everyone for watching. Thanks everybody who followed and subscribed during the video or during the stream. We really appreciate it. And a big thank you to, I believe it's High Shelf Gaming for that raid earlier. Just wanted to verbalize it. Thank you so much. And as usual, we'll see you guys next week. And from us at the CU, we will see you later.
Excelsior.
Plus ultra.